Thank you. What I'll do is I'll start again anyway. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Strategy Resources Scrutiny Board meeting. My name is Councillor Asghar Khan, and I will be chairing today's meeting. As you know, this meeting is webcast live on Leeds City Council YouTube channel, and I welcome anyone watching through the YouTube channel. Today we will be considering the latest financial position for the Council, looking at the medium-term financial strategy and the Month 5 Financial Health Monitoring Report. Like our finance paper from July and September, the Finance Health Report will be considered by Executive Board on Wednesday. So once again, thank you, Councillor Cooper, for giving us the early and the latest sight of the information on our budget. We also have an update paper on the core business transformation programme, which is aimed at modernising our back office functions and becoming more effective as an organisation. And we have colleagues from our procurement team with us to help us consider the development of new procurement strategy for 25-2030. I will now like to invite attendees to formally introduce themselves. I will go around the room on my left for the introduction. Guests are also introduce themselves as part of this, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Pauline Graham, Crossgates and Winmore Ward.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Tom Hinchcliffe, Bramley and Stanley Ward.
Good morning, Eleanor Thompson, Councillor for Guiseley and Rawdon Ward.
Morning, Councillor Craig Timmins, Carvely and Farsley.
Grand Rising, everyone. Councillor Sharon Hamilton, Moortown and Meanwood Ward.
Morning, everybody. Andy Parnham, Councillor for Armley.
Good morning, everyone. Victoria Bradshaw, Interim Assistant Chief Exec for Finance, Trades and Resources. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Lewis and Carla, Head of Procurement.
Morning, I'm Suzanne Hopes. I'm the Core Business Transformation Programme Manager.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Andy Dobman and I'm the Interim Assistant Chief Executive for People, Digital and Change.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Deborah Cooper, Executive Board Member for Resources.
Morning all, Councillor Ed Carlisle for Hunslet and Riverside Ward.
Morning, Councillor Simon Seary from the Pudsey Ward.
Morning all, Billy Flynn, Councillor for Adler Wharfdale Ward.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Diane Chapman from Rothwell Ward.
Morning, everyone. I'm Rob Clayton. I'm the Scrutiny Advisor to the Board.
Thank you for the introduction, and can I take the opportunity to congratulate Andy and Victoria for your new position anyway. Thank you and welcome to the board. Moving on to agenda item then, can I ask Rob to take us through the first 5 items of the business, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so just the formal items that we take at each meeting. So item 1, Chair, is the appeals against refusals of inspection, and there are none today. Item 2 is exclusions of the public, and there are no items for exclusion, Chair. Item 3 is late items, and whilst there are no late items, just to alert members to the supplementary information that was sent round after the publication deadline, which is on the Month 5 Financial Health Report, as the Chair alluded to. Item 4 is declarations of interest, and I will briefly pause to enable any members to declare any. I'll take silences as none. And then item 5, Chair, we have apologies, and we have apologies from Councillor Andrew Carter with Councillor Simon Seary attending as substitute, and we also have apologies from Councillor Kidger. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. So item number 6 is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 16th of September 2026. Therefore, do members accept these minutes are true and correct record? Yeah, I can see some nods. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to go materialising now page by page through minutes. So page 7. page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, and finally page 18. Thank you. So moving, we will now move to agenda item 7, page 19. The supplementary pack, which looks at the medium-term financial strategy and our budget for the current financial year. Both of these report highlights the challenge both now and in future. So it is really important that we continue to look at these as a scrutiny board. We have a presentation for this item which we will run through before taking questions and comments from the board members. I'll hand it over to Victoria now.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a brief presentation on the medium-term financial strategy, where we are over the next 5 years in that strategy. We'll then go through the savings gap requirement, the budget gap over the next 3 years, and then we'll cover the latest position that will be going to Executive Board on Wednesday. So if we just move to the next slide. So the financial challenge, I would say, is the most difficult that the Council's faced, both in the current financial year and in future years. We've got quite a steep hump to get over next year, which is where I'll go into more details around how that's made up, but we need to find 106.7 million to reduce the budget gap next year. That has been slightly revised, which I will go through in a moment, but that's what's in the medium-term financial strategy that went to Executive Board in September. And then over the next 2 years, it reduces down to 45 and then 42 million gap. Now, those positions for an authority our size are more what we would be expecting, but obviously because of the pressures that we've been facing over the last 18 months in social care and with wage increases, that's meant that the budget gap for 25-26 is significantly greater than that, and I will go into more detail in a moment. Okay, so go to the next slide, please. So there's quite a number of assumptions in the medium-term financial strategy, which is detailed in the pack that you've got today. The main one is around the core settlement funding. We've assumed that the funding will be frozen. We've not assumed that there will be an increase in the revenue support grant, which is the general grant we get from central government. We've also assumed around the business rates that we would again have 2 business rates, the small business rate multiplier and also the higher business rates. The small business rates multiplier, we've assumed that that will be frozen as it was last year or this year, but the higher multiplier will increase by 2%. What we would say is that for the small business rate multiplier where it's frozen, we do get compensation through the Section 31 grants. So we're waiting to get the announcement on the 30th of October around that. We've also assumed a level of growth in business rates. So we see a growth of around about 7.5 million per annum. And a collection around that has stayed strong within the business rates, and therefore non-collection we're expecting to be around about 1.1%, which is an improvement to where we've been since COVID as we've seen business rates increase. However, for council tax, we have actually seen council tax collection reduce. It's a lot difficult, especially with the cost of living crisis that residents are dealing with and taxpayers, and therefore we have reduced the amount that we're expecting to collect from council tax. The medium-term financial strategy assumes a 2.999% increase for core and 1.99% for adult social care precept. and that's been embedded into the strategy across the 5 years. The main funding changes are around grants, and where we've seen some grants where we've had notification that we'll continue, we've built those in, but we are awaiting a lot of announcements around grants. Thank you. Next slide. So the main pressures that we've had to reflect in the medium-term financial strategy for 25-26, as I've said, is around that pay increase. We've assumed 3.5%, which costs the council about 18 million increase. So that's been built in for the strategy. We've also built in for the national living wage, which we pay on our commission services, and demand and demography that we're seeing in those social care services has significantly increased over the last 18 months, and we've reflected that into the budget for 25-26, which is seeing an increase of 49.1 million. So it's really significant impact on the budget position. And then we've identified other smaller measures around income pressures, around our position on our debt, and also some inflationary around our contracts and general price inflation. Next slide, please. So within the medium-term financial strategy, when we undertook the savings programme this time last year, directorates had already identified 26.3 million, which was built into that base. So that 106 million has already been reduced by these savings that have been identified across directorates. So I'm not going to repeat them, but they are on the slide. So they've already been taken into consideration. So any savings that are identified for 25-26 are above those already built into the strategy. So from the medium-term financial strategy that we looked at in September, next slide please, we've actually reviewed some of the pressures within City Devon Children's and Families, and that's meant that the budget gap for next year, which will be going to Executive Board on Wednesday, is reduced to around about 104 million. And those are that is the budget gap that we're working towards, and the savings required over that period. So there is a report going to Executive Board on some savings proposals. So if we go to the next slide, please. So across each of the directorates at the moment, we've identified 37.4 million, which will be going to Executive Board to consider, and they do have ongoing implications across future years for 26-27 and 27-28, because the aim is that we try and balance the budget over the next 3 years. There's a number of reasons around that. One is around trying to get off the annual cycle of looking for savings every year, which is very resource intense. And what we're trying to do is to focus on the delivery of those services, and also the transformation work that we need to undertake to reshape and resize the council. So there is an ambition and an aim that we do try and do that savings position over the next 3 years, but also so that we can future look at what the council will look like and the journey that we'll need to be on as we reshape and resize. So it's to give us that more fundamental focus on what we need to achieve under those timescales. It's very challenging, and with us having such a big budget gap in 25-26, our main priority is to get that balanced and then to continue the work on the 26-27 and 27-28 financial years. So moving on to the this current financial year, we have seen the position stabilise, so we're still reporting 22 million. It hasn't worsened, but it hasn't got any better. But there are a lot of measures in place to want to reduce that position down, but also around managing the pressures and the risks that are within that budget. So although it stayed steady, what I would say is the directorates are working really hard. So I always describe it as a swan. It looks like it's stabilising, but underneath there's a lot of work going on. The vacancy freeze has seen some savings, but we've used those to mitigate some of the pressures. And we're also doing a lot of work around agency and overtime, critical spend only, where those staffing budgets are, to try and reduce them down. So we are expecting over the next few months for us to be able to start reporting that overspend reducing. What I would say on that overspend is that the pay award for the NJC staff was assumed at 3.5%. That's not been agreed at the moment, so we're waiting for the outcome of those negotiations. If the current offer is accepted, it would add a further pressure of 2.3 million on that position. However, as it's not been accepted and it could be higher than that, we've not incorporated it into these figures, but it's just to make you aware that we will have that 2.3 million pressure if it's accepted on top of that position. Okay, so I think those were the main things that I wanted to cover, so it's just if anybody's got any questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, for running through the presentation slides and the report. Before I bring the board members, does Councillor Cooper have any comments at this stage?
I think Victoria's gone quite eloquently through that slide deck to show everybody the really challenging position that the council is in at the moment in terms of the finances over the next 3 years. So I'll leave it there for questions from members, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. So I will open up to the board for any comments or questions on this agenda item. Councillor Palmer.
Many thanks, Victoria, for that presentation. Just a couple of questions on the potential cost of the pay rise. So 3.5, if it's accepted, adds an additional 2+ million. But can you quantify in millions how much each 0.1% is? Is that possible? And secondly, obviously, we all acknowledge there's a huge pressure on the finances. That even with the savings that are proposed, if they're achieved, there's still a gap of 66 million. Is there? Is that a gap that is likely to be where the money can be found in for savings or not? Really.
Okay, thank you. The first one, the 3.5% is what's been assumed in the budget now. The additional 2.3 is because the pay offer was it 1,925?
It's £1,290 per individual. So obviously the percentage increase depends on what an individual earns at the moment. So it does range from about 2.5% pay award up to about 6% pay award for those at the bottom of the pay scales. But I think for every percent it's about 4 million extra for us, just to give you the idea of yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then on the budget gap, there is still a 66 million gap. So we will be providing further savings proposals to November and December Executive Board. By December, we do need to be in the position where we've got a balanced budget for 25-26. So you will see a number of proposals coming through because we need to start consultation on the overall budget over December and January, ready for Budget Council in February. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Flynn.
Thanks, Oscar. Morning, Victoria. Every time I think I fully understand this, you manage to get one over on me. On page 6, it says the strategy assumes delivery of 63.9 million in 24-25 budgeted savings and 15.9 million in-year savings. Could you just clarify that for me?
Yes, so the budget when we set had a budget gap. So those are the savings that the budget action plans have been delivered. As part of that, then when we've gone through and reviewed the budget, because obviously it's set in December, through that latter part of the winter into the beginning of the financial year, further pressures were coming and being identified, and therefore the directorates are required to identify further savings to mitigate that, and those are included in the appendices to the report, and that's the additional amount.
Okay. Sorry, Victoria. How realistic is it to anticipate that those savings will be made? And if they're not, what are the sort of fallback arrangements? Is it going to be reserves again?
So in the budget position now, in the appendix in the back, it does set, it rates each of those budget action plans around whether they're high risk, medium risk, or they've been delivered in year. If there is a potential where that saving won't be achieved, and I think there's two areas, then what we've identified then is that's reported in that budget overspend of 22 million. So it's been taken into consideration in that point. The work that we're undertaking, that we've been undertaking since the beginning of the financial year around mitigation, so the vacancy freeze, the agency and overtime review, the critical spend only, no travel, etc., will help towards bringing that overspend down. Any overspend at the end of the year will have to be funded through the strategic contingency reserve, which was set up for the purpose of these high volatile period that we're in. So we put resources aside knowing that the budgets were very volatile and difficult to manage because of the demand increases. So that specific reserve is set up for that purpose, so it will be utilised for that in year. Thank you.
Thank you. Just following from Councillor Flynn's question, Victoria, paragraph 1.3.5 of the TFS paper provides details on the contingency reserves. Will the 25 will be there enough to balance this year budget if needed?
It depends at what point at what level we outturn. At the moment in the strategic contingency reserve, there's around about 20 million. So we will be looking at, that's why we've got all these measures in place to bring that down. If we utilise all that strategic contingency reserve, which obviously we're working hard to manage so we don't have to, that will mean that we won't have a level of reserves to help for next year. But obviously it does all depend on what comes out on the 30th of October for next year and whether there's any further funding for local government. Okay.
Councillor Timmins.
Morning. In terms of the planning for years ahead, at the moment, are you making any assumptions on what the new government's going to do, or are you kind of just basing it on the current status quo? And then, in terms of multi-year settlements that, you know, is part of the manifesto, how will that benefit us as a council?
Okay, thank you. So we've based the medium-term financial strategy on what we know at the moment, based on previous settlements. So there've been no assumptions around growth or funding streams, because we're obviously hearing that there's huge, a black hole in central government funding, and therefore we're not assuming anything in these figures at the minute. In regard to the multi-year settlements, we're not expecting one for 25-26. We're expecting that to be a rollover for 1 year, and then we'll hopefully get a comprehensive spending review for 3 years after that. What it gives us is certainty, but what it won't necessarily do is give us additional funding, which is what we require. So it will enable us to plan better and to have more known that when we're having to make decisions about reductions, that we're not going to get additional funding. But obviously, unless we get a spending review with additional resources, we are going to have to make the level of savings that we are doing at the moment. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Nope. One from me, Victoria, is haven't we made enough provision for staff pay award? One-off payment is 1,295 is on the table. Will we make a saving on what we have set aside if that deal is accepted?
So we assumed 3.5% across the board. So that was for NJC and JNC staff. The JNC staff have come in at 2.5%. But what that means is there isn't enough from that 1% shortfall to cover the additional that the NJC staff have been offered, and that's where the 2.3 million pressure has come from. As we've seen, inflation has reduced now back down to where we were previously, we do feel the 3.5% going forward is more reflective of potential future pay settlements.
Any more questions? No? So in that case, thank you, Victoria. The recommendation on page 20 of the agenda pack, are we happy to approve? Yes. Thank you. We can now move to item 8, page 135, which is a report on the core business transformation programme, providing an update on the work to develop the programme and go live with some of the new functions. I will ask Victoria and Susanna to introduce the report. Thank you.
Hi, yes, good morning everybody. The report outlines the aims and ambitions of the core business transformation programme, which is aimed at really improving and modernising the way that we deliver our back office services. So by that I mean our financial activity, financial operations, HR payroll and procurement and contract management. So as much as it's a business change programme, it is underpinned by a technology refresh, which is the what we're currently delivering at the moment. So the programme outlines what the aims and ambitions of the programme is and what benefits we hope to achieve as a result of the programme. It outlines the risks relating to the technology implementations which are underway at the moment. It outlines the delivery model and the design governance to make sure that we're making design decisions in accordance with the adopt not adapt principles. And it outlines the phases and the timescales. So the phases are currently stand as going live with the new finance system first, followed by the new HR payroll system, and then followed by a new procurement and contract management system. So the report really just outlines a status report and a progress report for information. So I'm happy to take any questions if anybody wants, has got any questions.
Thank you for the report, and can I ask Councillor Cooper if she's got any comments at this stage? Or?
I don't think there's any need for me to comment at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll open it to the board. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. My question to you, Susanna, is page 148, 9.2. It says due to extension of financial timelines. My question is regarding the contingency, 3 million. What's causing it to go over?
It's really... I keep forgetting. It's mainly due to the complexity and the resources that's required in bringing in the new systems. As you can imagine, bringing in a new finance system is really quite complex, and it's required a high degree of resources, both external and internal, to help contribute to the design of the new system, and particularly in relation to development of the integrations. Normally, when you bring in a new system, for comparison purposes, you might integrate one or two other systems, but a new finance system, all roads kind of lead back to a new finance system, and we've ended up having to integrate over 50 other different systems into a finance system. So it's really very large scale, and it's complex, and it's required a high degree of resources, particularly from financial services as well. We've had to release some staff with some particularly specialist expertise, knowledge and background, free them up from the day-to-day business to help work on the project and the design to make sure that we get a solution that meets our business needs. So it's really about the majority of the contingency has gone into the additional resources, and when we set out in setting out the timelines, it's always an estimate when you look at how long these systems are going to take you to implement. So we did have ambitions to do it within 12 months because we understood and understand you know, how that it creates a lot of extra work for staff and creates a lot of extra work for people, and you know it's you're using external consultants, and we wanted to keep the cost of external consultants to an absolute minimum. So we did set out with ambitions to try and do it within 12 months. But the timeline is, we are constantly reviewing the timeline. As we move through the project, we're learning more and more. And so we've had a number of timeline extensions from beyond the initial 12 months as we've identified additional work and additional complexities that we've needed to undertake. So all that is sort of eaten into the contingency.
So are you saying then that, I hear what you're saying, or you didn't plan for it to be longer than 12 months, so therefore that's why your contingency was only 3 million?
We planned, in terms of the overall programme, we planned for it to be 2 years for finance and HR payroll. But we had ambitions to try and do the finance, or try and implement the finance system within 12 months. But we have eaten into the contingencies quicker than we'd hoped because of the additional resources that we've had to utilise to undertake the work that's undertaken the work that's been required.
Victoria, do you want to add something to this?
Can I just also come in to say that this needs to be taken in the context that we're implementing a new finance system, and we've also had government requirements around audit backstop dates, which came, there was a requirement that we had to do the audit by the end of September. We've also got all the work that we're undertaking around the budget and the budget monitoring. So those same staff are doing a lot of different things at the same time. So the resource requirement has been more challenging to get the staff to be able to focus completely on CBT, core business transformation. We also need to make sure that we get this right, because when it lands, it affects all staff and suppliers, and it's got wide-reaching routes across the whole of the council and external. So we've got to make sure that when we press the go live button, that it's going to deliver what we need it to do. There's an awful lot of testing and data migration that needs to be undertaken. And when you start one of these projects, it's very, very difficult to estimate what that's going to be for a council the size of Leeds. And that's one of the issues, really. We're estimating, and those estimates will change. And that's what's happening at the moment.
I keep pressing it. On page 158, it's saying 24.2, where staffing reduction result in increased work pressure on workload on staff. So why are you reducing the staff? And what were you doing to relieve the work pressure on the other members of staff?
So there's a number of different work streams undertaken. We know that once Dynamics is implemented, that will automate a lot of the processes that we currently do manually. And therefore, we're looking at the workflow. So the reason why it's called core business transformation is because it's not just around putting a new finance system in. It's all those workflows that undertake around that financial system that we're looking at. And we know that the solution dynamics will enable us to streamline some of our processes, to not have as much manual intervention in those. There's two parts to this. One will be that we know that workloads are high. We got that through the staff survey, and it's around reducing those workloads. But also, because of the financial challenge that we're seeing as a council, we are going to have to make reductions, and therefore we're looking at how we can use the new finance system more smartly to reduce the numbers of staff that we need to undertake those processes. So it's got two sides to it. The first is about getting the workloads manageable, and the second is those workflows around how we're more efficient and take that manual intervention out wherever we can. Thank you.
So With regards to the work extending, is that going to cause more pressure to staff? I know you said about reducing the workload.
We won't be, the efficiencies from the new system will not come into place until the new system's operating. And therefore, if we extend the deadline, those staff will still be required to work on it so we land it and we get it right when we do go live. Once we've implemented the new system, that's when we'll operate the new workflow, ways of working, etc. And that's when the savings will come after the system's been operational.
Thank you. On page 58, saving are referred. And do we have any figure on what saving from the core business transformation programme?
We haven't yet identified, or we haven't isolated the savings until we've really been able to go through and complete the design process. We have identified that this is really about a continuous improvement process, enabling continuous improvement, rather than being able to put a system in and then achieve savings, particularly as a result of just implementing that new system. The new technology, it gives us the capability to harness all the new digital tools on an ongoing basis. So we've got to isolate the design first and what we're going to go live with as a minimum, and then continue to identify what else we can exploit from that system and switch on in the subsequent years after we've gone live with the new system. So we'll be undertaking an exercise after go live to be able to identify the benefits and then identify the savings. And as Victoria said, in terms of being able to identify improvements in the way that people work and change their processes and the way that people work. And that will then enable us to capture the savings and the benefits. So it will be an ongoing process.
Victoria?
Yeah, and just to add to that, as part of the savings required that are coming through in October, November and December executive boards, there will be assumptions around, especially in financial services, around how the new system will enable us to streamline what we're doing, and they will be incorporated in the directorate savings proposals. So to make sure we don't double count, we don't want to say that the savings are as part of the core business transformation that are then duplicated within the directorate. So we are consciously keeping it separate, but as Suzanne said, we will capture the benefits from the new finance system.
And Victoria, will the saving be higher than the spend on the programme, which is 18.48 million?
It's difficult to say at the moment, but what I would say is that the new finance system had to come in place. It wasn't just around making savings for the organisation. The current system is an in-house system that was developed a long time ago. It's not as supported as it should be. It's not as modernised as it needs to be for future ways of working, etc. So there was a number of different factors why we had to put in a new finance system. So things like with FMS, it's not real time. You can't. Your budget holders can't access their information, drill down that information, etc. Suppliers can't see where things are up to. Whereas we needed a new modern way of working for a local authority of our size, and therefore we'd come to the point where it was end of life, so we had to replace it. So there was a number, like I said, number of different factors why we had to change the finance system and the HR system, is to enable that efficient way of working in a modern way.
Councillor Timmins.
Thank you for your work on this. I mean, it looks really complex, incredibly complex, so well done on that. My comments relate to Councillor Hamilton's, actually. Under the finance work stream, 14.1, it mentions the risk of overwork and stress for project team members. So if I could just ask you about the well-being of the team, how they're getting on. And then, on the 14.3, can I ask officers, do you believe that the 1st of December go live is achievable for the new finance system? And if not, what is the likely cost of retaining KMPG until April? And then 2 other quick points. Just under the roadmap status 8.1, where are we with the implementation of the payroll change date? And when will the stagger process start? And just under the HR payroll workstream, it talks about pay rewards and not being able to be implemented whilst running the 2 systems side by side. In terms of pay rewards, are they bonuses or are they pay increases?
Take those one by one if I can. In terms of staff well-being, we are very conscious of it, and in terms of making sure that we are having regular check-ins with staff working on the project, and making sure that you know, when that they're getting and taking appropriate leave, that they're not overworked, you know, that they're not doing too long a days too often. So there are arrangements in place to make sure that we are monitoring the well-being of staff who are undertaking work on the project, because as you've pointed out, it is complex. And we've done a stress risk assessment and, you know, highlighted the risks around that and putting actions in place. In terms of the, what was it, the 1st of December go live, that we are currently undertaking a review. We are in the final phases, actually, in terms of the finance implementation, in terms of testing. But part of that final phase is to undertake a review about whether the 1st of December is achievable or is safe, I think, in terms of a go live. We are confident that, you know, we've built a robust system, and I think if I had to put a measure on it, you know, we're kind of 85% there in terms of a system build. So we are into the phases where you do start getting uncertainties around the unknown unknowns around things coming out of testing that will need fixing, and you know, putting plans in place to make sure that we fix defects and issues and bugs. So we are doing that review at the moment, and we're hoping that the outcome of that review will probably be, you know, it is within the next couple of weeks. So then if we can go live, we can plan accordingly, or if we can't go live, then again we replan accordingly. So that is currently in process. In terms of the roadmap for HR payroll, we are on track to go live with that on the 1st of April. Again, approaching the final stages now of the HR payroll system, finishing off the build and the design, and approaching again the testing phases and the data migration sort of test routines, with the view of being able to go live on the 1st of April. But again, all that is constantly under review. And in terms of the pay awards, it's the actual pay award, not sort of bonuses or performance or anything. It is the actual annual pay award. And yeah, we can't apply, while ever we're doing parallel running where we're doing 2 systems side by side, you can't apply pay awards to both systems. You can only apply a pay award to one system. So we will have to wait until we've completed the go live of the HR payroll system to be able to apply the annual pay award for staff.
Just a couple of bits to follow up. So if it doesn't go live on the 1st of December and we need to do it till April, just the cost for retaining KMPG, what do we expect that to be? And when would we normally, because obviously I'm a new councillor, when would we normally give the pay rewards to staff? Because I think them two going side by side until May, and if it's financial year, Would it be later, and would they get that backdated?
So on the 1st of December, we're assessing it at the moment, so we don't know how long the time is going to be. So it could be a month, it could be 2 months. We might decide to delay it till the 1st of April. We don't know, we haven't done that thinking yet. So we haven't discussed it with KPMG about whether we'd require them for all that time, part of that time, or whether we could stand them down and bring them back up. So there's a lot of discussions around that, so we haven't got a figure around how much KPMG would be. Andy will confirm, but what I would say on the pay award is that we back pay it anyway. So at the moment, even if we delay the finance system until the 1st of April, it won't affect the first payment for the for HR's payroll, which is on the 26th of April. What I would say is that if we did have to delay the pay award, we backdate it anyway. So staff are not they're not disadvantaged by it. But Anne, do you want to come?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just to confirm, so the pay awards always will affect from 1st of April, but because our pay awards are always part of the national collective bargaining, normally they're not settled until much later on in the financial year anyway, so we have to backdate. So we don't envisage there being any particular problem. I mean, it does depend obviously what happens nationally, but normally, if we're now in October and we're still trying to settle this year's pay award, which will backdate to April, so we think based on what Victoria said, it will be fine, so there will be no disadvantage to individuals.
Thank you. Next on the list is Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. All fairly much linked to what's been said before, but particularly with regard to the payroll and procurement systems. Could you tell me whether they were off-the-shelf or made-to-measure systems, particularly with regard to procurement, because of the peer review recommendations around contracting? And on the go-live and sort of rollout procedure, I understand that the two systems will be running in parallel, steam-driven with the all singing and all dancing one. There will be a transfer of data sort of involved. What sort of escape and exit plans do you have if the system does go down?
Okay, thank you. In terms of the payroll and the procurement systems, they are off-the-shelf systems. The HR payroll solution is a system called iTrent that's provided by Midland HR, which is very prevalent actually in local government. Many other councils up and down the country use that system, so that is an off-the-shelf system. In terms of the new procurement solution, we are just about to embark upon a procurement, so we haven't selected that technology yet, but again, we're going to market for an off-the-shelf system, and again, part of the one of the requirements that we've specified is for it to have a proven track record in public sector, which I think is important really for, or it helps, I guess, in terms of not implementing something that's greenfield or that's novel, because then you benefit from the learning from other councils and how other organisations have developed things, so it just helps accelerate things a little bit further along. In terms of escape plans, part of the implementation plan, and this is, the benefit of utilising experienced consultants, is that they're going to help us develop what's called rollback plans. So we do take a number of rehearsals, or do a number of rehearsals in terms of data migration and cutting over. Because, of course, when you go live with a new system, you're taking all the data out of the old system and transferring it across into the new system. And then at that point then is when you start using the new system. So all the way through both projects, into the live projects, the finance and the HR payroll system, there's been a number of data migration rehearsals, and each time you do it, you get better and better at being able to identify any missing data or any data that's inaccurate, and then you obviously take steps to rectify that. So on both projects, we've undertaken a number of data migration rehearsals, and part of the go-live planning will undertake a level of rollback planning in terms of how you're going to, if when you cut over, if things aren't as you need them to be, then at what point and how you then roll back. And we're obviously in discussions with the consultants at the moment about how we're going to do that.
Thank you. Before I bring Councillor Cooper in for comments, Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been really helpful. Having been on the other side of this sort of 20 years ago in other roles, I appreciate just what a massive task you're undertaking. Yeah, some flashbacks there of late nights and data migration and data mapping that I wouldn't want to repeat. Just to check in on training and staff engagement on the new systems, how that's going, how that's being planned with the possible different dates and where that's shifting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the programme, we do have some dedicated resources in terms of training and engagement and communications. So there's been a lot of work undertaken around engaging with staff and communicating with staff on progress of the programme. And lots of newsletters and sort of online communications, lots of workshops and engagement sessions. So we have been keeping the anticipated users of the new systems up to date with what's going on. And part of the review of the timelines is that we do want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the ambitions that we have from day one about making sure that end users get appropriate and adequate training. Because often when, and it's very common that in terms of projects, that when you start reaching the end of your project and times get squeezed, that you can end up squeezing out the time that you need for providing training for people. So that's part of what we're taking into account in terms of the timeline reviews, to make sure that we're still left with enough time to be able to provide training. And we are undertaking, as you'd expect, you know, training needs analysis around what type of user needs what type of training, and a variety of different training solutions. We are defaulting, I guess, in the first instance to being able to provide digital type training, so videos and online user guides and online learning, but we do have ambitions to be able to provide in-person training to those people that do need it, but we're hoping to keep that to a minimum because it's very resource intensive and it requires, obviously, you know, people to take time out of the day job to attend in-person training. So there is a lot of time and effort being put into developing online learning and online material and videos and things like that. So we are very mindful of just making sure that you know, we need to meet people's needs in terms of training and that it doesn't get squeezed out of the timeline.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board before I bring Councillor Cooper in? Over to you, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me a few comments. I think it's just really important for us to remember that the core business transformation project is not just about an IT solution. It's a holistic programme around how we do our corporate business in this organisation. It is, and I know a few members have alluded to it, a massive programme. And to undertake that, we have had a board of senior officers as well from across the council who are, you know, going to be either using the new IT or it's within their area of skills and expertise that they've come together to see how we can do this in the right way. And Victoria mentioned it earlier, but it's really important that we get this right for a council of our size. Before we go live, we must make sure that that's right, which is why all that testing, all that rehearsal, and of course all of the staff welfare that's going into that and training as well, that we make sure that that is completely right before we do go live. And just to reassure Scrutiny members, that the teams are really on it, and I've got every faith in them delivering it for us as an organisation, that we really need it because everything else is so far out of date. that we desperately need it as well. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, and can I take the opportunity to thank Victoria, Suzanne and Andy for answering those questions. Are we happy to, with the report on recommendation page 35? Yep, thank you. Next we have agenda item 9 on page 179, which is update on the procurement and our planned new procurement strategy for 25 to 2030. We have a presentation for this item. Lewis, can you run through the presentation slides, please?
Yep, thanks, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Next slide, please, Rob. In terms of the excuse me, existing procurement strategy. Cheers, Rob. In terms of some of the existing procurement strategy areas, we've got 5 main ones there in the existing strategy. So value for money and efficiency, governance, social value, commercial opportunities, strategic supplier engagement and contract management. And then we also have some things in the strategy which are called procurement enablers. So these cover key things such as supporting staff within the procurement department through things like qualifications, apprenticeships, exploiting digital technology as well, including things like the procurement system, P2P systems, etc. Embracing an innovative approach across all council procurements and embedding change into the organisation as well. And just a quick note, the existing procurement strategy and the environment that it's operated in, we are mindful of the fact that there's been quite significant things such as COVID, cost of living crisis, new procurement legislation, and also Britain formally leaving the UK. Next slide, please, Rob. So in terms of some of the work that's been done to date in terms of reviewing the procurement strategy itself, so there is a national procurement strategy, and we've done an assessment as a team within the procurement service as to where we expect it to be by the end of the strategy and where we are now as well, which is in Appendix 1. A general comment is that we've improved or met or exceeded what our expectations were within the 2019 procurement strategy. We've also identified areas of improvement as well. We've also conducted a SWOT analysis, so to really understand where the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats lie within the team and also within the new procurement strategy itself. We've also done some work around the strategic context review, as that's changed since 2019 as well. In terms of some of the considerations that we've reached in terms of the new procurement strategy, and again, this work is subject to review, and on the final slide there's some timelines which I'll take you through. But as you can see, a lot of the new procurement strategy, we do anticipate there's not much change in terms of what those core building blocks will be. We have split out some of the key areas, so you'll see on there contract management and supplier and market engagement, where previously together in the existing strategy. We do anticipate splitting those out, and we've done quite a lot of work on the contract management side of it as well. We've also split out reforming and continuous improvement. That's going to be quite a key area, and it's important that through the life cycle of this new procurement strategy that we don't leave continuous improvement, and it's not something that we continuously review as part of the new strategy. And then finally, again, culture, recruitment and retention is a new one that we're looking to include. Next slide, please, Rob. And in terms of the timeline, quite small there on the screen, but what we're expecting is from now until November, we'll be reviewing the current procurement strategy, and that's what we're doing at the moment, and we'll draft the new procurement strategy itself. From December to February, what we're expecting is that we'll have consultation with key council teams, so those that directly interact with the procurement strategy, and also come back to any relevant board meetings or scrutiny panels, etc. What this will also allow us to do is to consider any relevant changes by the new government as the Procurement Act, and there's been a delay from the 28th of October this year till the 24th of February. What we do anticipate that if there are any changes, it will have an impact on our new procurement strategy. So this does allow us time to review and reflect on those changes and to incorporate them into the new procurement strategy itself. And then between February and April, we will be looking to go for formal approvals. And then, if all okay, we'll be anticipating rolling out the strategy between May and June. And there are my slides. Happy for comments.
Thank you, Lewis, for the presentation slides. Do any members or additional comments on this item? Councillor Dawn.
Thank you. It's just a quick one, and it's not actually on the presentation, but it probably should or is part of your strategy. It's around training. So a couple of years ago, we did have a presentation from procurement at the board. And I think we had 400 people across the council working on procurement, not necessarily in the procurement team, but we only had 18 people on a professional qualification training course, and that was being looked at. There was other training available, but it wasn't mandatory. So I'm just wondering if when you come back, I think it's on the agenda for February, could we have an update on where we are and how many people actually work on procurement and how many have been trained professionally to a professional standard qualification, or not the mandatory training, but how many have actually gone through any form of training on the management contract module?
Lewis?
Yeah, I'm happy to bring that, or I can send it as a supplementary item. In terms of the contract management central government training, I can definitely get the figures for that. We recently launched the contract management framework across the council, and we've really engaged with the contract management community. And one of the feedback has been that the central government training is quite long and arduous for a 50 grand contract, for example. What we are doing at the moment in procurement and commercial services is developing some relevant and proportionate training as well, so that that all contract managers, regardless of tier of contract, have got that a level of training that is acceptable to the council as well. But yeah, happy to bring those back in February.
Do you want to come back and Councillor?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Lewis, the recent announcement delay in the implementation of the Procurement Act has not affected. Has that not affected our plans?
Thanks, Chair. So, in terms of the work that's been undertaken by the team, we're still full steam ahead in terms of for the launch date. We have done a lot of work up to this point as well, in terms of document reviews, in terms of CPR reviews, etc. So, whilst there has been a 4-month delay, and that's to give the new government time to consider and to suggest any amendments to the new procurement strategy, we're still moving ahead.
Before I bring Councillor Thompson in, just one more. Could we now be ahead of the game given this delay in this act?
I would say that we're probably on par with our peers across the region, so we have done a lot of work, and when I speak to other heads of procurement across the region, we are on par with them.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Particularly picking up on the value for money question that's arisen throughout. Some concerns just through our experience as ward councillors really of things like the street lighting contract, that we're getting an abysmal service, that they're telling highways that they're doing a job, they're not doing it. We don't know what they have done. I am taking this up with highways as well. And simple things like Christmas trees, the contract that's been put out for providing Christmas trees in communities, the prices are beyond comprehension. We don't know who's doing it, the service is poor and the costs are ridiculous. And when that's coming out of community committee funds, which is council money, I've got some serious questions around that. It's not perhaps directly related to the strategy, but just as thinking of what we're doing and how to become more effective in what we're doing, I thought it might be worth raising. Thank you.
Lewis, do you want to
I was just going to say, in terms of that value for money exercise as part of the procurement strategy, we should be considering a range of factors, but I'm happy to pick these two contracts that have been mentioned outside of this meeting. Would that be helpful? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Given we have 1 billion spent externally, a significant amount, what saving targets do we have?
So in terms of the procurement strategy, there are no savings directly attached to that. I do believe that there the savings are within directorates themselves. Yeah.
So what we've done is we've had a look at the obvious spend across contracts across each of the directorates, and we estimate that if we've saved 1% on those contracts, it would generate about 11 million of savings because of the significant amount. What we are doing is Lewis and his team are working with the directorates and going through those contracts, and then any savings that would come from that would go against the directorate asks, the directorate targets, to make sure that we don't double count, but also to make sure that the ownership of delivering that reduction in that contract value is with the directorates who are managing those contracts. Thank you.
Councillor Flynn.
Thanks, Asgar. Just following up on that one where, we're spending around about £1 billion a year on stuff. With regard to the commercial opportunities that the new strategy will provide, it's a huge organisation, by toilet rolls to new procurement systems and all the rest of it. And it's around the expertise of the people who we actually use on procurement at the moment, and that's no reflection at all on them, because it's such a wide variety of things that we're looking at. I mean, just recently, for instance, Andrew Byram, I think, spotted an opportunity to do with Sims, I think, which I think around about 1,000 new laptops were bought on fairly short notice. He spotted it because of his experience in IT, obviously, and all the rest of it. Will the new system, provide the kind of information that people on procurement actually need to see the opportunities that are available in the marketplace? Because if you don't, you're going to be missing an awful lot of stuff. And again, no reflection on the staff. It's just such a huge, variety of stuff we've got to buy.
Thanks, Councillor. So in terms of the new system, we do anticipate it should help in terms of that full end-to-end cycle of procurement and contract management, something that's missing currently in the council. In terms of some of these opportunities that you've referenced, this to me will be part of that strategy in terms of that continuous assessment, but also in terms of when we're coming up to contract extensions or contract renewals, there's a real opportunity from that 12 months before to ask the questions, sort of, is it still fit for purpose? Can we reduce scope? Is there something better out there? And doing that within the 12-month period. And actually some of the work that Victoria referenced around the 1%, we have been developing sort of key questions that we're working with, for example, Andrew and the team, for key contracts to say, is it still fit for purpose? Can we do anything different? Can we get more for less? Can we get social value, etc.? So we do anticipate, I anticipate with this new strategy that will be a core focus as well, Councillor, to continuously be assessing where we are.
I'm assuming we do work with WICA, and devolution will obviously provide a lot of opportunities for much wider sort of contracts in terms of the whole of West Yorkshire, as it were. I mean, how closely do we work with them on procurement?
So in terms of collaboration opportunities, we do have a regional procurement group, which I'm co-chair of with two other councils. So as part of that strategy, we do look for opportunities for collaboration, and WICA also sit on that procurement group. Would say we're doing some work at the moment as well across the anchor network, so working with my counterparts with key anchor institutes within the city to really drive some of this work as well. And then finally also we're in the process of establishing a core cities procurement network, again to work with councils of a similar demographic to address some of these challenges on a national level as well.
Okay. Lewis, in Appendix 1, digital technology stands out. Where we self-assess as minimum, what steps are we taking to improve? Is this linked to the core business transformation work?
Thanks, Chair. In summary, yes, it is directly linked to the core business transformation work, I would say. Separate to that, I did mention earlier around some of the work we've been doing in contract management, and we have been really utilising and exploiting Microsoft, for example, in some of the work we've been doing around contract management dashboards and scorecards. What we've been able to do is actually get those sent directly to contract managers' inboxes, and in a series of 8 clicks, that information's fed directly back onto a dashboard for directorates and for teams to see. So whilst the new system will bring a lot of, hopefully, bump us up from developing up to potentially mature or leader, and we are also doing work behind the scenes to get us to that point, even pre-new system.
Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thanks, Chair. Just to add my thoughts to Christmas tree pricing, it is abysmal. Now, grass cutting was an issue, but I'd like to thank the procurement team because when we raised it in Bramley and Stanley, it was patchy, excuse the pun, but it really did improve after somebody from procurement picked them up on it, so thank you for that. Question about social value, really important aspect of this, which I think has been really well touched on in the report. But there is a comment about training and that no resource is currently available. We'll be working with partners at WICA and regional partners to kind of implement that training. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. And just a note around the background information, so the comments and the wordings from the 2019 previous. In terms of work today, what we've done is in the council, we've got a social value team, which was established last year, one of the very few nationally, but also one of very few in the region. And I am chair of the regional social value group across all of our Yorkshire and Humber regions. So I would say, and it does mention in the report, that we are one of the leaders, and I definitely sort of get that when I speak to other partners across the region. So again, that will factor as a key requirement, and I'm definitely determined to get more social value out of our contracts.
Councillor Timmins.
Mine's just a comment, really. And it's following on from what Councillor Thompson said. It feels to me sometimes like some of the suppliers of goods or services are providing extortionate prices to us. And for me, I think we should look at how we can turn this around. You know, I think it should be a privilege to be an official supplier to council as large as ours. And it can only benefit them if they can market, well, we're a registered official supplier to Leeds City Council, in terms of trust with other people looking to them for business. So I suppose the question is, what can we do to turn it round to get them to come to us and say why they deserve to be one of their suppliers, and you know the benefits to us in terms of the things we've spoken about, but particular value for money.
Thanks, Councillor. So I'd say for the majority of procurements where we're doing open market testing and we're going out to a range of providers, sometimes the price is the price if we followed a process. What I would say is that the new procurement legislation, there is a new procedure called the competitive flexible, which will enable us to have some of these conversations like what you're saying, so run an initial process, but then ask the questions around, is there scope to reduce pricing, etc., which hopefully does directly link into the value for money building block on the slide, but also then provides that assurance that we've done as much as we can as officers to deliver value for money. I do appreciate what you're saying, sometimes those prices are high. If that's the market rate, then unfortunately it's very limited in terms of what we can do, but do take your point. And the point around sort of privilege for working for the council, do absolutely understand what you're saying.
Thank you, Lewis. Any more questions? Nope. I'll bring you in, Councillor Cooper, as well. If possible, would we like to bring this back in the new year when the procurement strategy is in the development to hopefully have more further influence over its development? Is that something you can build into the plan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yep, we can absolutely do that, and I've built it into the timelines as well.
Thank you. Thank you, and I'll bring Councillor Cooper in at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. And just a couple of comments, really. Excuse me. I just wanted to thank Scrutiny Board members for their comments and questions this morning. And for me, this item goes to at the heart of how scrutiny benefits the work that any work that we do in the council. So the development of a new procurement strategy, say, for instance, and your comments from today around all of your own experiences, in particular as ward councillors, what you come across in terms of contracts that are taking place, being undertaken in your wards that you've experienced, is invaluable. So, you know, please keep giving us those comments as well. Always happy to pick up any particular issues anybody has. Please contact me, and I'm happy to pick those up in between scrutiny board meetings, but very happy for you to raising them here and for us to be able to pick them up. The work that was touched on in terms of social value that Lewis has been undertaking, and actually we had a presentation at the board, I think either earlier this year or going back into last year, of all the work that's been undertaken in terms of social value, and it is excellent. The work that is happening is excellent, and Lewis is absolutely right. We are leading, not just regionally but nationally, on the work of social value. So it is really important to us that we can deliver on social value in this city. We as has been mentioned, you know, procurement's worth £1 billion, you know, from the council. So we need to make sure that we get out of those contracts what's right for our city and for our residents, and obviously for us as an organisation as well. But I look forward to developing that work on the new strategy going forward with Scrutiny Board members. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, and can I thank Lewis and Victoria for answering the questions. Thank you. Recommendation on page 179. If we are happy with this item, then I will move on to item agenda 10, and thank you to the guests. If you want to stay, you can. If you want to go, it's up to you. So we now move on to our last agenda item, which is the work programme, and we will be, I'll hand it over to Rob anyway.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so the regular consideration of the work programme that we do each meeting. Just to highlight, Chair, that we now have a budget working group on the 9th of December, which I referenced in the pre-meeting. We just put it on the record, so that will follow our public meeting on the same date. Appendix 1 is the work programme itself for members to consider, and then Appendix 2 is the latest exec board minutes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any comments or questions on the work programme? Nope. Oh, Councillor Thompson.
Just noting that the procurement strategy is on there for February, which is good.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, it's, I had loosely planned that, but we've got formal agreement today as well, Councillor Thompson. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Any more comments or questions? Nope. In that case, that brings us to the end of today's business. Thank you for your attendance and contribution today. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, 9th of December at 10:30 a.m. With the usual pre-meeting starts at 10 o'clock for the board members. Thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.